Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're looking into a really unique artist, Michael Grimm von Gaysen, GvG as he's known. Our mission is to sort of unpack how his, extraordinary background shapes his art, his approach to myth-making, and his very distinct aesthetic. Something that really jumped out at me from the sources was his journey. Not art school, but like a quarter century in the death care industry.
Yeah.
From a Wisconsin funeral home all the way to Service Corporation International. That's quite the starting point for an artist, isn't it? How does that feed into the art?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just, a line on his bio. It feels like the absolute core, the crucible for his whole body of work. Think about it, that professional intimacy with finality, day in, day out. It gives his art this profound weight, a really palpable sense of memento mori.
Memento mori, right? Reminder of death. But how does he make that not just morbid? You said it's like witnessing.
Exactly. It's not about mourning in a passive way. His work witnesses. It's like he saw firsthand how people process grief, how memory works. So the grave, in his art, it isn't really an endpoint. It's more like a prologue, a canvas, for memory, for transformation. It's a perspective few artists get.
A prologue. I like that. Still, focusing so much on death, does it ever risk feeling, too heavy for some people? How does he keep it, as he said, restorative?
That's a fair question, and I think the key is how he handles it. If you think about those Dutch masters, the Venetia's painting.
Seeing the ones with the wilting flowers, skulls, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Signifying life is short.
Precisely. They use symbols to show decay, right? GvG uses symbols too, maybe the fine line of graphite or even like the pulse of an EDM beat in his music. But his symbols point towards legacy, towards what resonates after, the soul's echo maybe. So the art itself becomes this act of restoration, not for the body, obviously, but for like the collective spirit. Finding some beauty, some order, even in loss. It's finding beauty within that transition.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there's this other layer, this occult futurism stuff the sources mentioned. He's actively creating myths.
Yeah, not just retelling old ones.
That sounds, pretty intense. Yeah. How does someone listening, someone like you trying to understand his work, approach that? How do you even build a new mythology today?
Right. It's ambitious. He does it by basically creating his own personal grimoire, like a magical textbook, but it's his, filled with his own sigils, his own systems, like this more universal timekeeping system he developed. It structures things.
The timekeeping system.
Yeah, it helps frame his narratives. A really good example is his album Deus Ex Ipsa. It's structured in 3 acts. That structure is the myth. It charts the birth, death, and rebirth of the self. It's like a hero's journey, but deep into his own identity.
Wow. And musically?
It blends stuff like, the huge sound of symphonic metal with really intimate, sad piano. It creates this whole narrative soundscape. Very personal, but somehow you feel it applies more broadly, too.
Okay, so we have the death care background, the legacy focus, the myth-making. What about just the look and feel? The sources talk about an aesthetic of dark elegance.
Yes, and you feel that instantly. Whether it's a drawing, ink work, or his music, it's got this aristocratic elegance, but it's always paired with this dark, clever wit.
So not just dark for darkness' sake.
No, never just for shock value. The macabre elements, they feel like tools he uses to get at some kind of truth. Think about his kids' stories for Cameoin and Morningstar. They have the sort of Sushin but gothic rhythm. Or Slay Away Camp, which is pure satire, but sharp. His work always has layers. It looks elegant, sure, but it's definitely not tame. It's an invitation, really.
An invitation to what?
To consider the big stuff, the profound things, but always with this little wink, this dark humor. It reminds you that even facing the grave, there's room for defiance, maybe even something sublime.
So putting this all together, for you, the listener, engaging with GvG's work, what's the main takeaway? It really makes you think, doesn't it? How art can come from such unexpected places.
Definitely. And his work, it doesn't let you just be passive. It really demands your engagement. It's asking you to look past the surface, Find the myth hiding in everyday stuff. Find the memory woven into the materials. And maybe find that enduring part of yourself, even when faced with, our own impermanence.
That's quite powerful. It really is an invitation then, isn't it? To think about how our own lives, our own challenges, how they might actually be the source, the crucible for our own deep expressions. What stories, what understandings of loss and legacy might be waiting for you to unearth? Something to think about.